Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this third edition of the Data Spaces Dialogue, Design Principles for Data Spaces. International Data Spaces Association and the co-organizer OpenDI project are welcoming you warmly to this live session with valuable inputs, this time from Finland. My name is Thorsten Huelsmann. I'm the CFO of International Data Spaces Association, and not only responsible for money and for finances, but also for internationalization and also in part for research projects of IDSA. Today, I'm very happy that two renowned experts from Finland accepted our invitation to this live session, and I warmly welcome, first of all, Tuomo Tuikka from VTT. Hello, Tuomo, and welcome to this session. And secondly, Marko Turpeinen from the company 1001 Lakes. Hello, Marko, and yes, thank you very much that you joined us. This live sessions are dedicated to the topic of data spaces and are dedicated to data sovereignty and data sharing. Since a couple of years already, International Data Spaces Association is working intensively on the sovereign data exchange and the reference architecture model, which was jointly elaborated and established by IDSA members, but not only IDSA members, also other organizations and people. And since beginning of this year, the topic of data spaces is even more in the focus of activities, because as well the European Commission took this topic of data sovereignty and data spaces as a core element of the data strategy, which was published at the beginning of this year. We thought from IDSA it is worthwhile to share the knowledge which we already gathered, which we already worked on with the community which is interested in data sharing. Two words on the co-organizing project, OpenDI. It is Open Digitizing European Industry. It's a CSA, a coordinating and support action funded by the European Commission. And within this project, OpenDI, the beneficiaries are working on a task force on data spaces, and therefore OpenDI has as one of its cores also the data spaces approach, and we facilitate the discussion within the community on data spaces and on design principles within this OpenDI. So this is the reason why OpenDI is a co-organizer, and if you are interested, please visit www.opendi.eu to learn more about this project. But now to the two speakers of our session today. Tuomo, you are one of the, let's say, IDS supporters from the very beginning, working in Oulu for VTT. Could you maybe introduce yourself, because I think it's better if you do it on your own, to the audience and say some words what you are doing at VTT.
Yes, hi everybody. Thank you for inviting me to this live session. Yes, as you said, my name is Tuomo Tuikka, and I work at VTT, as you said, in Oulu, but we have like headquarters in Espoo, and we are like 2,000 people organization, and my role here is now that I am a research manager. That means that I'm sort of like heading the research of one of our research areas called data-driven solutions, and pretty much that also holds ICT topics and software and data spaces and data and artificial intelligence. So pretty much wide topic area, but I do our best, and there we have a lot of great colleagues who are working on, and I believe you have been also, many of us of you have been meeting of from people from VTT. So that is what we do. Also that we serve the society and we work on research in EU and national projects, and also the companies that are involved in research activities. So we want to we support those companies. Yes.
Okay, thank you, Tuomo. And on the content part, you will tell us more in your input in a couple of minutes.
Okay.
Marko Turpeinen from the company 1001 Lakes. Welcome to this live session. Marko, people might know you in relation with EIT Digital in Finland, but maybe also from university. Share with us, please, what is your current activity and what is your company or organization doing?
Well, sure. Thank you, Thorsten, and hello, everyone. Indeed, Marko Turpeinen is my name, and the company that I'm representing is actually fairly recently founded company. We specialize in consulting in data spaces. And of course, the name of the company is a bit of a wordplay, data, zeros and ones, and lakes, but also coming from a country with significantly more than 1,000 lakes. In this context, we recently joined IDS as a member last month, actually, as a company, and are really looking forward to contributing to the work of IDSA and really see this as a major endeavor in the European landscape now to make a difference in terms of redesigning how data can be used across organizations. And I will maybe add a little bit of a twist also in my own presentation regarding let's say the more human-centric side of this. So how do we keep also the individuals in the picture? And that's partially because in my past, so I've been quite active in a community called My Data, and I will tell you more about that later. I am also an adjunct professor at Aalto University, so I teach and do a bit of research there. And indeed have a history in European collaboration. So EIT Digital, European Institute of Innovation and Technology. So I was in charge of the Finnish node of EIT Digital, and also a couple of years in the United States where we set up the Silicon Valley hub for EIT Digital.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, Marko, for this introduction. Now we know you both, and we can start with our session. For the participants, if you have any questions, any remarks, please use also the chat function that I can uptake in between the one or the other question. We organize it like this, that we have two inputs, maybe 12 minutes, 13 minutes of both of the gentlemen, and afterwards we have time to discuss the topics and also maybe to pick up some of the questions you as an audience might have. So I think then we can go ahead with Tuomo. Tuomo prepared some input, and I would ask Tuomo to share your slides and also to inform us about data spaces, about data sovereignty activities facilitated by VTT within the Finnish community. Tuomo.
Yeah, thank you very much. Can you now see the slides? I don't know.
We can see the presentation mode. Perfect.
Yeah, and there's this control panel is not bothering you at all. So, okay. So as in the presentation from VTT, and yes, and I think that the task I was given here to open up the Finland and the relationship with the European data strategy and Gaia-X and some of the words of launching coalition. So these are quite large topics to discuss in 10 or 12 minutes, but I'll have some slides to open up that what we have been doing and what we do work on in Finland here. So the International Data Space Association, as said already, I think by Thorsten, is that we have been a member of IDSA already from the beginning, and as a research organization we have been also following and learning on what is going on in our sister organization, especially the Fraunhofer and TNO in this topic. So that has taken us this route that we thought that it might be a good idea to raise awareness and create a hub in Finland where VTT is the facilitator, and so we did that last year. We have been there as a hub around a year now, and collected a bunch of companies who are interested on the same topic. And here you can see some of these all these companies as logos. There's Vastu Groups about data sharing technologies, they make an consultancy on intelligent industries. Fastems is a manufacturing company or manufacturing facility making company, and Aalto University is research and education. I think you already heard some things about 1001 Lakes, so Marko can open up that also later on. So this is what we have been doing, and I think that it has been pretty much in research mode in last year and the years before. Is that we have created a nice bunch of research projects, about a dozen of them in the EU and national context. So we have been using those as instruments to understand the data spaces and help our colleagues in the hub to work on their products and see that how that concept of data spaces could be useful for them. And it really is. In fact, if we are talking about European-wide data spaces, it's about connectivity to different these value networks that will be emerging eventually from data spaces concept, and this is very interesting development. So about this European data strategy and Finland, I put Finland in quotes because this is a perspective I bring in, because there's quite a lot of stakeholders and people and organizations that are following the European data strategy and commenting on that and also discussing about that in Finland. And VTT's role is practically is that of course we have been participating for like many years in workshops and discussions about the sovereignty of data and what does it mean, and how do we this kind of deal with the critical data so that it's like in European possession, that and not in elsewhere in the world. and in that sense this strong effort to address the data sovereignty seems to be a very good idea. And there are like 9 focus areas which I believe much of you know already, and they are really so like interesting, all of these focus areas. And if you think of like one country, so it's like, okay, for starters, that all of them are interesting, but then again, I believe that in a sense that some of these focus areas will be stronger in a sense in country because of the country economy structure and the groups that want to work on the specific focus areas. And I could mention here is that for example, the health area, the health domain in Finland is that for example, this European health data space is now it's Sitra is an organization which is coordinating that in Europe at the moment, and we follow that also and participate that development as well. So maybe there are some others similar kind of efforts and which we want to also see evolving. So this year has been quite really interesting, and because of this what happened last year is this Gaia X initiative that has been raised by the French and German ministries like in last October, and during the winter was like like very much in like announcements and such things, and even eventually the European data strategy when it came. So that had been raising quite a lot of attention on this GaiaX initiative and what it is. So now these two issues, this data strategy and these technical initiatives. So here we are now trying to figure out that how these will sort of like merge, or what is the each of either of them, how do they contribute to each other. So some of my Finnish notions here, which I also collected, I think that here the discussion has been about quite a lot about my data and fairness in data sharing. That should be taken into consideration when we are doing working on the data spaces or developing them. And also this is something that Finland can bring into the table. Then also there's some talk about the cross-sectoral data spaces, that they are also of interest. It's not only the focus areas that could be, well, maybe they are drivers, but then again there's quite a lot of interest in what if we combine data spaces. Then inclusiveness in data strategies, it means that there's like in Europe there's like many thousands of companies and organizations. We want to have this inclusiveness in the whatever we do, that take everybody in and to make us stronger. And once again, the forestry is missing from the focusers, but maybe that could be part of the agriculture in a sense. And of course, yes, we want to be in common effort to create data spaces in Europe and participate in the GaiaX development as well as with IDS. So some Finnish VTT notions that what we are working on, like have been working on last summer, this summer, I mean, and in order to catch the wind, so to say. So we did establish a GaiaX for Finland, sort of like a virtual team of stakeholders, companies, organizations, or who want to be informed and involved in the developments. So that was the first step, and then now we are working on planning for the steps of establishing a structure that and discussing that how that could be, and of course in collaboration with our European colleagues, and what would the GaiaX hub mean. So that's the next step, as we know that the GaiaX Foundation has been established now. We want to contribute to the development work, and of course to look at the use cases. And as we talk about this Horizon Europe nowadays in research organization, I think more so we want to also to kick off research projects in the EU and national arenas. So that's from VTT point of view. And I think that my second part of this talk was about what's IDS launching coalition, and this is something that it's an important effort to push forward the commercialization of these the use cases, commercialization from the companies. And I think that the one aspect of this launching coalition is the convergence of offerings and convergence of companies in order to serve the evolution of data spaces. And this is something that we have been addressing with our use case and bringing in companies to discuss on what they are having and how to do the convergence. And here our part is that we have been developing and creating a cross-sectoral data space use case using smart autonomy, which is our VTT facility. In fact, it includes energy data platform and transportation data platform, and that is very interesting to see that how the cross-sectoral benefits can be found from these two areas. And you know that in smart autonomy there's like well, let's say it's VTT premises, Aalto University premises. It's around 4,000 people they're living, and they are growing very quickly, and it's estimated soon that it will be like 11,000 people. So that means that there's a lot of constructions with new technologies and data to be just harvested. Another point of view is this transportation, because the Helsinki area city transport is like, it's called HSL. They have like more than 2,000 vehicles going around daily in Helsinki that collect data, and it's the data is let's say CO2 emissions and energy data, and this in fact are moving data platforms, these vehicles. So they collect quite a lot of data that we can harvest and use in combination with the local area, regional data platform. So let's see here is that the smart autonomy data space serves a smart city, and so that provides indicators and methods to make smart cities able to compare their functions and make them better informed of the impact of their actions. So if there is a construction site, so you can right away see that what does it mean in energy consumption or emissions. So there's many companies involved, so it looks very simple, but it's not, because you need to always have all kinds of agreements and consents from different parties and in order to get the data and eventually get this visualization. You can see the picture, maybe also the animation, that you can see that there's little balls that also circles that show the energy consumption in the different parts of autonomy at the same time. So also this transportation data can be there also combined. So here is a simplified picture about this data space evolution, and having these two big circles, gray circles, about these platforms and which are connected via connectors, and this is like hiding quite a lot of the details of what is going on. But maybe the main point here being that what VTT's role is to provide a testing platform to local companies in order to see that how their services and offerings can be adjusted to IDS well, the reference architecture model and especially the systems in this case. So VTT provides parts of the development, and then we can see that for example here Vastu and Platform of Trust, they are providing services for this ecosystem. So that is something that I think we will see in the future, that more and more to companies testing their offerings in like a, let's say, safe environment, and have all this, which has all these elements of data space available, and that this is a prerequisite in order to more and more commercial platforms and whatever business models they have to emerge. So I think that this was my sense of thoughts here about the data spaces and GaiaX, and of course there's a position for discussions to start with you.
Perfect.
Thank you very
much, Tuomo, for this very interesting insights, and also the description how a group of companies and people work together to already come up with with a proof or with an experiment on data spaces. I think this is of utmost importance, but also of utmost interest. Let me just say two words. The relation between IDS, reference architecture model, and GaiaX was described a couple of weeks ago in a live session by my colleague Lars Nagel. So for those who are interested from the audience in learning more about the relation of IDS and GaiaX, please consume and listen to the webinar. You can find it on the IDS channels and the web page. And I think maybe another word on the use case we have shown here. I think Tuomo, you rightly emphasized that cross-sectoral data spaces are really of importance and really bring the value of a sovereign data exchange, let's say, to life. And I think the smart city use case, which you just tackled within your presentation, is a perfect match, that cross-sectoral data spaces really enable data providers and data owners to play with their data, to share data without losing their control. I think this was the main message with the data spaces example. Is it right?
Yeah, pretty much this is the case. So that's an environment where we learn to do that. So
yeah. Okay, brilliant. And maybe just two more words on to explain these the people who are listening to our webinar. The Launching Coalition is a group of IDS members which assembled at the beginning of this year to really bring experiments from a use case maturity level to a commercial level, which was described by Tuomo. So if you are interested in following the Launching Coalition, also please go and follow via the webpage and the respective channels. Okay, thank you so much, Tuomo, for this first input from your side. Thank you very much. Marko, now it is your turn, and I ask you to share with us your thoughts about data sharing, data spaces principle. And yes, we are very happy that you are with us. And please go ahead, Marko.
Thank you, and well, maybe I'll start with a very brief personal note regarding where Tuomo ended up. So Otaniemi has a big history in Finland as actually being a test bed for all kinds of technical experimentation. And more than 25 years ago, I was in charge of a small project done by the Finnish media industry and the local technical university on whether there is something interesting for media in this new technology called World Wide Web. So maybe there is something a little bit similar that we are trying to build here. So kind of rethinking how the infrastructure should work. I will concentrate on two different aspects in this brief introduction to the topics. So fairness in data spaces and human centricity in data spaces, and then to put this a little bit in context, so this is a picture that has been used a lot in how you describe IDS, how we have the model of parties that form a network that want to share data in a controlled way. There is the principle of sovereignty. The different parties are connected using their data via a connector to this network. So this is what I call a network-centric view on data spaces. Well, the fun thing with networks is that you can pick any of these parties, and in this picture, typically you tend to think of organizations that are in part, taking part in this network. So you can take any of those organizations and lift that up, and then you get a view that is organization-centric view on the data space. So that organization is the center, and everybody else is around them. And then they have, different shades of gray or different shades of blue in my slide on how do you want to then administer the access to the data that you have. Some you don't share with anybody. It's internal, it's proprietary. Some have, more or less restrictions in terms of confidentiality. Then there might be controlled sharing where there actually is no issue on confidentiality, but you still want to keep it within a sphere. And then you have open data, which basically is really, as said, is for everyone. And it goes the other way around as well, data coming inbound to the organization from these different fields or spheres of interaction. Now, but the third view you can have when thinking of data spaces is actually to think of people, individuals, and then obviously you go into the direction of personal data management and privacy issues and such. But I think as we speak about kind of the design principles of what European data spaces should be like, so all of these three viewpoints, the metric-centric viewpoint, the organization-centric viewpoint, and human-centric viewpoint, are all correct. And they are just different viewpoints into looking actually at the same phenomena. And then the question is, how do you, when you design the data spaces, how do you actually take into account all of those three aspects? This picture is the logo of a movement called My Data, which originated from Finland but has since expanded all across the globe, and is promoting the idea that the human should be at the center. And for example, when we think of the ways of how do we actually make this cross-domain connections possible, well, one way to make them possible is actually to use the individual as the connecting point. If my energy data and my mobility data, like in the case of the smart Otaniemi example we just heard, should be combined, so maybe it's the individual that should give the permission for these two domains to meet. So that's what this picture also tries to entail. So in terms of principles of My Data, so here at the very kind of high level, and again, My Data is not a technology. It's more like a movement on changing the way in which we build the infrastructure and architectures and how to take the human more into the loop. So human-centric control, so control here being the key word. So people should have the means to control the usage of their data. So again, I mean, regulation is great, but if you don't have the means, for example, like GDPR is saying that you need to be able to move your data from one service to another, data portability, but if there are no means, so then it's a little bit like an empty piece of regulation. Individual as the point of integration, as I just said, empowering individuals in terms of allowing this movability of data, also then creating new services because of that happening. Portability, well, I mentioned that already, but accessing and reusing the personal data across different services, across different domains. Transparency and accountability of where the data is being used. You can check where my data is being used. I give consent, but I can also kind of do this, checks and balances on the data, and then interoperability across different areas. So those are the 6 My Data principles. And the basic idea is that, well, data protection is great and regulation to protect people is needed, definitely, and Europe is forerunner in that for sure, but then at the same time that should not come with the expense of using the data. So we need both. We need use of personal data and the data protection, leading to what's here called data empowerment. So then still more on kind of, well, from the My Data perspective, if you look at what's happening, then you can also define the roles in this way, that you have the data sources, you have the data using services, you kind of, the control is about how does the data move from the sources to the services, and the people should be able to do this, but on the other hand, it's complex, it's technically demanding task to be able to understand what's happening in these data flows. So then there is a role for, let's say, a new intermediary that's in this context has been called My Data operators. And then there is a need for, let's say, broader governance mechanisms, the governance frameworks, and we're definitely talking about them a lot also in the context of IDS. And just very briefly, this is from this spring. So there was let's say, a white paper on what My Data operators could be doing, and these are the 9 functions. So starting from the left, so identity management, permission management, managing the services that the service menu that the person is using. What are the mechanisms of value exchange within the operator network, for example, and between the sources and services. Data models, so well, basically ensuring interoperability. That's most important there. And then personal data transfer and personal data storage. And then you have the support for governance, and you have the support for login and accountability. I won't go into details, but just to give you a flavor of, and this is how, when you look at the, let's say, the new role of my data operator, what the different options of what that operator could do, how the world looks like. Then a couple of examples of something that's, you know, coming from Finland, or well, that I happen to know. So this is a very recent activity that was actually supported by a Finnish agency called VAKE, which is an investment and development agency owned by the state. So they ran a My Data Accelerator on the topic of skills, and as you may know, so one of the 9 envisioned data spaces is actually skills data space. And this was an interesting exercise to get the Finnish parties together to really think what could be the design principles, human-centric design principles for such a skills data space. And I encourage you to take a look at the website. So there's plenty of information on kind of, well, what actually would be needed when you start collecting the different bits and pieces about people's capabilities and their kind of, you know, work history and their interests and goals into a coherent set. And I think this is an excellent area also, which shows where kind of the personal interest and the, well, the job mobility and people's personal goals meet the industry goals, because of course you want to match these. And then another example where I also have been participating lately has to do with completely different field. Well, Tuomo was mentioning forestry earlier, but there is actually agriculture as well in Finland. And this is this picture is from an interesting exercise that was done between Nordic countries, especially Finland and Sweden. So the Natural Resources Institute in Finland, Luke, and equivalent organization in Sweden, Agrovest. So the point is here that how do you collect data, very, very detailed data from the farms, and use that in the network of different actors that are having interest towards that data, but how could you do that in a fair and balanced way also for the farmers? And an interesting thing here is that that actually when you look at farm data, so that depending a little bit on the interpretation, but you could also say that very, very often that's personal data. So it's a single family owning the farm. If you know anything about their field, basically any data about the field can be considered as personal data. So I won't go into details, but I just, you know, show this as an example of a data space that where there is some activity in Finland, and we are definitely you know, looking at this combination of what could be called industrial data in this context and personal data, which leads to my kind of this first message that I have, that when we are designing these data spaces, and IDSA is doing an excellent job. So at the same time, there is an overlap between what's called the My Data side of this, and how do we design the data spaces in such a way that there is a balance between these views, I think is quite important. And as said earlier, so it's not either or, it's both and how do we take these into account? And then there's also this sort of a clear separation of this is personal data and this is non-personal data. Well, there is a whole, again, shades of gray there, and that complexity needs to be taken into account. And one more note on this, that when we design these different data spaces in the future, it's probably not a good idea that in every single domain you define a different set of principles and different set of also technologies to handle personal data. So how, again, allowing this cross-domain usage, how do we have common ways of defining how personal data is handled in different domains, which should be a design goal. Then I go to the other side of my my brief talk. So here is another Finnish agency, very active in the area of data economy, Sitra. So Sitra is the Finnish Innovation Fund, and has had a program for data economy that's called IHAN for a couple of years already. And is likely to continue this theme. It really seems to be very important for Finland, and Sitra is taking an important role in making sure that we are one of the countries that really is moving the needle. So they are playing their part, and so Sitra has had this program. And one key areas that this program has been looking at are kind of data sharing, the challenges in data sharing. How do we understand the benefits versus risks of data sharing better? How do we govern these ecosystems, coming up with common vision and understanding the roles for participants? How do you coordinate ecosystems, data ecosystems? And then also looking at the technical issues of infrastructure and semantic interoperability, the problems related to data quality. And these are kind of general observations of these are kind of the challenges overall when we look at data sharing. And then, well, here, this is work in progress, and I don't think actually that Sitra has come up with such a kind of a principle list yet. It's more like my view now on what are then the fair data economy principles, but here goes. So kind of providing a more balanced playing field for different actors, small, big, also different sectors, also companies and let's say government actors or NGOs, and maximizing the collective benefit. So the goal should be that it's value for all, data for all, value for all. Then also identifying and managing the risks related to data sharing is hugely important. So that should be part of fair data economy principles. Empowering individuals, as I said earlier, enabling data flows, but also enabling new services and better decisions by the individuals. Then providing means to process the personal data in accordance to regulations, be them European or national. So again, I mean, as said earlier, regulation is great, but if there are no means to actually implement those regulations, so they don't mean much. So this should be one of key principles in terms of fair data economy. Then being, if you have these data sharing networks, so be just and impartial within the networks and ensure compliance also related to legislation. Now, one concrete work that we have been doing is this rulebook work that has been on data sharing, and I encourage you to take a look. But this is a template that allows different organizations to come up with rules, but also the contractual framework and code of conduct for their data sharing network. So it's a template that takes all of these 4 different or 5 different viewpoints: business, legal, technical, ethical, and data, and then actually is a template for a document that can be used for any data sharing network to define their kind of common goals and rules. I won't go into details now in the interest of time, but take a look. You can find this template. It's openly available on Sitra's website. And this work is continuing. We are doing some translations already and would like to do more. And there's going to be a new version, but also the link to IDS. How can this be used in the context of IDS would be very interesting to explore. And we encourage everybody to participate. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Marko, for this very interesting and meaningful insights. Thank you very much. I think immediately one could comment that, of course, the community within IDSA, which is currently working on the rulebook writing, for instance, out of the launching coalition, is very carefully looking into the work done by Sitra and the rulebook. So our CTO, Sebastian Steinbus, and the team around him is very much looking on it. So this is very well deserved, and I think also a very, very valuable link. Let me come back to 2 or 3 of the points you made in your input. First of all, I found it very interesting to have this 3 different views on data sharing, and I would immediately, because I'm working a lot with SMEs, with companies from manufacturing, from logistics, and so on, a question arises immediately. What is your viewpoint? What is the maturity, the organizational maturity of companies dealing with this topic of data sharing? Are the companies already prepared for it, or is it only a very small circle of organizations which are currently able to discuss and to exchange?
So I can start maybe first. There are definitely very different levels of maturity, and those companies who are actively participating in multiple ecosystems and can kind of take a leading role in some and you know, maybe another role in another one, those are still fairly few. And often when you look at data ecosystems, so it starts with a business problem in mind, and data is just a means to get that network going. Especially SME view often is that it's not because we want to get the data moving, it's because we want to be part of some ecosystem that makes sense for the company, and that's how it should be. But then, of course, then you have different maturity levels kind of underneath this, let's say, a very active ecosystem view. So you have one-on-one data exchange contracts between the parties. There is, you know, one-way flow. You might outbound flow. You open up an API, but don't expect much in return, for example. Or you're very active in inbounding data and you're very good at it, but that's about it. And then there are some companies that are really just looking very much still kind of how do we use data inside. So it very much depends. The range is huge, and especially when you go to smaller and medium-sized companies. So there's plenty still just to educate what's possible. That's actually one of the things that Sitra is also doing. They have a program for SMEs on that.
Okay, brilliant. Tuomo, what is your perspective on this?
Yeah, I think that you know, this is a good question. What is the maturity? But then again, if we look backwards in time, is that we, you know, in the previous decades we have been quite a lot of putting effort to information systems development, and that has been with, there's a lot of plethora of methodologies and systems that have been done, and thus creating silos in practice, and this has been a, you know, it's a competitive edge for the companies also to create the silos. So now what is really changing is that we are looking at the new ways of thinking about value, and that means that the value is created by the ecosystem, and in the change in the activities in the ecosystem. So and that creates then new kind of impact in the whole data ecosystem. So at the same, if you are CEO in a company, you just then first you ask that, okay, what is there in for me, and what kind of arguments can I make in order to participate this data ecosystem? So that must bring in something, not just giving out something. So this is sort of like discussion that some of the companies are really now so let's say forerunners that are seeing this, that okay, what if we have this kind of data ecosystem, and we see the value of data. It's bigger when we collect it and process it and provide services and maybe do some analysis on it, eventually create digital services on top of it. And this is the value, that we can create something which has not been existing before in a trusted manner, so that we give impact to those activities that we can see from using the data. And this is like the crucial thing. And as Marko was pointing out, this agriculture ecosystem, I think this is in a good way, and there's quite a lot of maturity in that sense, that everybody is practically aware of that this is a good thing. And then again, it's quite a lot of work that to let's say like establish this kind of of understanding that okay, this is good for us. I think it's pretty much with this many other technologies as well. It's we talk about artificial intelligence, same things goes there. What is it that we benefit out of that? And now that we are looking at ecosystem, we have to find new ways of working, new ways of communicating with new ways of making these contracts, and maybe even new legislation in order to this to happen. And this is where we are seeking this kind of and there's quite a lot of things boiling at the moment, I think.
Okay, thank you, Tuomo, for this. One remark, because Marko in his input also mentioned the fair data economy principles. I just want to point to one interesting article on the IDSA website, which was recently published by Sebastian Steinbus, our CTO. He mapped the FAIR principles onto the different topics of IDS reference architecture model. So for those of you who are interested in not only discovering the sources which Marko mentioned, I think it's also worthwhile to read this mapping of different topics. And then I want directly come to one question which I found in the chat. So first of all, thank you from the alumni from India. We have a remark and greetings from there, Finnish alumni. But what I find personally very interesting is a question I have here, or a comparison when we are talking about data sovereignty and about these fair data sharing principles. Is it possible in the future to have this movement as a pure open source initiative and open source movement? There are comparables or comparisons with, for instance, Linux, and as the Finnish open source community is also quite strong. I would ask or give this question directly to you both. What is your opinion? Do we or will we have this open source movement on data sovereignty in the future? Marko, what is your opinion first?
So indeed, yeah, there's quite a lot of history in terms of open source in Finland, and we would probably be one of the proponents of such a thing happening. And I'm also happy to see that, for example, IDS is now taking more, let's say, systematic approach to becoming an open source organization. So especially when you think of the infrastructure that should be used by anybody as broadly as possible, and you know, essential in components of the architecture, for example. So it makes a lot of sense that those are done in a fashion that really you know, has a strong open source community around them, and I think well, IDS is moving into the right direction there.
Thank you. Tuomo, what is your opinion about this?
Yeah, you were asking from RTO representative, so so maybe that's a good thing, but then again, open source, I think that it may be also that it creates trust when you can see that what is going on. So that perspective is this is what we want to do, is that to have trust in the systems, and maybe having that aspect that you can see what is running, so that helps quite a lot in creating that trust.
Okay, perfect. Then I would just want to pick up another question which I have here in the chat on mobile devices and on data sovereignty. I think this is related to the input of Marko on the My Data initiative. Are we too late when it comes to the use of smartphones and home devices and data sovereignty? Is it too late, Marko? What is your opinion?
Well, I don't think that we are too late. There are definitely some areas related to people's everyday use of mobile devices, like, for example, the advertising market in mobile industry, and which is completely out of control. I mean, so it really does not have these rules, and whether it's still, you know, can we turn that around and reintroduce them? Good question. But I don't think mobile technology as such is something that kind of you know, is a lost case, not at all. And again, how people will experience the digital side in many ways will be channeled through their mobile devices, and then the question is that how do we kind of you know, give more the control back to people in terms of how that is done.
Okay, thank you. Tuomo, do you have any more input on this issue?
Yeah. This I was thinking about the GDPR and this legislation was like well, the reception was not quite clearly always joyful in the companies about this that. But then again, it's just now where is that? Well, maybe the companies are pretty much used to the GDPR and seeing that this might be really useful and beneficial for the businesses. But then again, it's worrying about this, that if we can get really the benefit out of this legislation, which is created by Europe and copied by other countries, so that we can have this small window to get the benefits there. So need to be very quick in that matter. And well, this effort like Sitra's Ihan is pretty interesting to see that we should try to create market out of what we have, and so to say it's very important to then also to get the value out of that.
Okay, thank you. So, gentlemen, 1 hour is already past. Unfortunately, I think we could talk another hour, but our live sessions are very short and precise. Therefore, we have to come to an end. And I want to use this opportunity also to point to the 4th edition of our Data Spaces Dialogue, which will take place in October. And then we will have colleagues from the Netherlands, from TNO, live and on stage discussing on their respective use cases. I think supply network and logistics will be a topic then. Also the work which TNO is facilitating in the launching coalition to make use cases with IDSA reference architecture and more mature will be on the spot. And yes, as well, I want to encourage everyone to follow the activities of the OpenDI project, of the task force which is running within the CSA, and where we also will witness some more inputs and some more remarkable results on the design principles of data spaces. This should do for the time being for today. Thank you very much, Marko. Thank you very much, Tuomo, to participating in this IDSA live session. And well, the audience, thank you for your interest. Thank you for participating, and please stay tuned and follow us and join the next live session, which takes place in October. Thank you so much and have a great day. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Thorsten.